I'm Emily Mashak, and you are listening to Tuned Into NoCo, Town Square Media's show that lets you know what matters in NoCo. I'm talking today with Melissa Venable, the Executive Director at the American Red Cross Northern Colorado chapter, about the wildfires going on in our state. So thank you so much for joining me today, Melissa.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
Now, we're hearing a lot about a lot of fires. There's a lot going on here right now. But from a professional's perspective, how would you describe the Cameron Peak fire or the Bluestone fire or the Grizzly Creek fire? What is it like in your eyes?
Yeah, so these fires are definitely making things a little bit hectic and definitely a lot smoky around here in northern Colorado. Just a couple of things. We've been really involved with our, first responders and our emergency management partners here in northern Colorado when it comes to responding to these fires. So I do have a few updates. The Cameron Peak fire, right now, we don't have any mandatory evacuations because right now that fire is pretty much just burning uninhabited forest land. And so while that's happening, we're kind of on standby, but there's no structures that are being threatened. So we don't have to worry about, hustling to stand up a shelter or get people out of their homes for something like that. That's just not happening at this point with the direction that that fire is burning. And sometimes when that happens, the best thing to do is just to let the fire burn. So they're doing that, and we let the firefighters and the first responders do that part of the job. What we do is we help support them and the individuals who are affected. So that comes more into play with the Bluestone fire that we had. That was another flare up that happened over this past weekend, and that was up near LaPorte, near Ted's place. For those of you who are familiar with northern Colorado, that one, they did have mandatory evacuations. And so the Red Cross was called in to stand up an evacuation center, which we did. Now, what makes it interesting is normally in these kinds of situations in the pre-COVID era, we would stand up a shelter. We'd have, a gathering place where people could come. We'd have cots, we'd have a shelter, we'd provide food and all those kinds of things. But now because of the COVID protocols that we must follow, we're not able to do congregate sheltering for people when they are evacuated from their homes. So what we did instead is we set up our evacuation center where people could come, check in, get information that they needed. And then we worked with some local hotel partners to make sure that those individuals who were displaced because of the fire were able to have a safe, comfortable place to stay. So we worked with our hotels in the area to get those individuals some lodging and to take care of those immediate needs. We ended up, oh gosh, I don't have the exact number, but we ended up sheltering nearly 50 people in hotels, because they weren't able to get back into their into their homes because of the fires. Now, I will tell you that as of today, the mandatory evacuation for orders for that fire have been lifted, so everybody's able to go back home. We do have one individual that we are still sheltering at this moment, simply because that individual has some health issues and some respiratory issues. We're going into a smoky area. It's going to cause some issues. So we're still helping that person out. But, that's kind of, the Red Cross, we do a lot of different things during these kind of responses. We work with clients like that who maybe are needing shelter. We also can provide canteening for our first responders, which basically just means we would go up and provide food and water and those kinds of things. That's requested for the firefighters who are fighting the fire. We also then continue to follow up with residents who've been displaced. Even though once they go back to their home, we'll follow up with them and continue on with casework to make sure that they are getting the ongoing support that they need. So it's been a busy, few days, weeks, for the Red Cross, but this is what we do, and we are excited to be able to help people. I always feel good because I feel like sometimes we can be like the one bright spot on what could potentially be somebody's worst day. So we are happy to go out and offer that kind of support.
I know that the community is so grateful for that support. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to shed some light on this or not, but from your perspective, how are the firefighters doing right now? I'm sure it's very difficult to be in their situation.
Sure. I mean, they're tired. They have really hard, difficult jobs. And, think about how hot it's been, just down here, just going about our normal daily business. But think about taking that temperature, that August temperature, and then go up and try to fight a fire in that while you're wearing all of your gear and doing all of that. It's definitely not an easy job. And those men and women, they're heroes, and they work so hard to make sure that, the loss of homes, loss of life, all of that is kept to the absolute minimum, and they do a great job. So it really, truly is our honor as Red Crossers to be able to partner with them and do whatever we can to help support them as they do that. Because, they do the hard work. They're the true first responders. We joke, I don't know if it's a joke, but we kind of joke in our kind of group that we are second responders. The firefighters go and do their work first, and then after they get people out and they send people to us. So we're second responders. But what we do wouldn't matter if it wasn't for the work that those first responders are doing.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you mentioned that the Cameron Peak fire, they're just kind of letting it burn out since it's not near any structures. Is there an estimate for how long it will take before it's gone, or is it just kind of anybody's guess at this point?
Yeah, that's the thing with fires. They're unpredictable, and it really is kind of anybody's guess. I mean, winds could shift and things could, change. I did hear recently that they're saying that it might burn until we get our first snow up there. I mean, that's the potential. So, which obviously up there we do get snow earlier than we do down here, in the Front Range. But that could happen. But it could also just depend on a good rainstorm coming in, dampening things down. There's so many different factors that it's really, really hard to predict that. So we keep a really good close eye on it, and we work really in tandem with our emergency partners to make sure that we have our kind of thumb on the pulse of what's going on. And we also want to make sure we do have tips and things that we tell people who might live in areas with wildfire potential, things that they can do to make sure that they stay safe. And we put out a lot of this information. I have some tips I can run through here, but we also put out a lot of this information on our American Red Cross of Colorado Facebook page. So you can just go to Facebook and find the American Red Cross of Colorado. And we also do have Instagram for those who are more into Instagram, and it's the COWI Red Cross, or I'm sorry, WY Red Cross. It stands for Colorado Wyoming Red Cross on Instagram, so you can find us there. But some of the things, I would just tell people, one of the big messages at the Red Cross that we always want to get out to people is that preparation can make all the difference in the world. And granted, with wildfires, there's not always a lot of time to prepare. I mean, sometimes they're just on you and you just literally have to get out with, you don't have time to prepare. However, there are times too where a fire is in the area and they, evacuation orders might be forthcoming, but they haven't been ordered yet. During that time, there are things you can do if you live up in those woodland areas. You can do things like move your combustible furniture into the center parts of your home, get it out away from the walls. You can, if you're advised to do so, you can shut off your gas meter. It's always good to open your fireplace dampers and close your fireplace screens. You can go get your garden hose and start wetting down your roof and the area around your home. You can remove combustible items from around your home's yard. All those little steps that you can take can make a big difference if the fire comes and the firefighters are then having to help try to defend your property. That gives them a little bit of a leg up when that time happens. And then also, it's just kind of good to have in your arsenal, your toolkit. We do have some really beneficial Red Cross apps that you can download onto your phone. We do have a shelter finder app. So if you're in a situation where you have been evacuated and you need to figure out where the shelter is, where you need to go for the evacuation center, that app will tell you exactly where to go. We have a first aid app that, if unfortunately something happens and you need to render first aid to someone, it can walk you through 6 first aid steps there. And then we do have a specific wildfire app that can help you track wildfire activity in this area. So those good things, it's easy to download them on your phone and then just have them whenever you need them. So that's the kind of thing I always tell people. It's like, yeah, you hate for that bad day to come, but that bad day can be a lot less bad if you've taken a few steps to prepare ahead of time.
Definitely. And those sound like such great resources to have on your phone, especially here in Colorado. Can you walk me through the process of what it's like when the evacuation order is lifted? Can you just go right back to your house or do you have to take extra precautions? What's that like?
Usually, well, it depends. Again, usually once the evacuation orders are lifted, they don't lift them unless they are, really certain that you're going to be safe to be able to go back home. So if they've been lifted, you should be safe to go back home. The Red Cross, we would let here's the situation, you're safe to go back home. If there are certain roads that are closed, or if you have to take certain entrances or whatever, we make sure that that information gets relayed to all of the folks that, we've been working with. And then the main thing, though, is just to make sure that we have that follow up, that we follow up with our clients to make sure that they were able to get back into their home just fine, and to make sure that they don't have any lingering issues that they need dealt with, as a result of the fire. So usually, but if you've been allowed back into your home, if the first responders and the emergency officials say that it's safe to go back, you can trust that it is. So, but we will make sure and relay that information to you too, and you know hopefully your home and your yard and everything is still there and standing. Now, obviously, if a fire does go through and inhabited area where there are houses, that's a whole different ball game, because then the recovery is much a longer process. We work with clients on a much more prolonged basis on making sure that we connect them to community resources to get them, housing situated, to help get them, other resources in the community that might be able to help them out. But fortunately, that was not the case with this particular incident.
Right. What would your advice be for people who aren't necessarily close to the fires, not in evacuation range, but are like living here in Fort Collins and are struggling with the smoky air? Does the Red Cross have any tips for how to deal with that?
Oh gosh, that, I mean, you walk outside, you just go for your walk in the evening, and it just isn't the same as right now as it typically is in our beautiful Colorado. But I would just tell people, especially those who have respiratory issues, to right now just stay inside as often as you can. And if you're in your car or something, run your air conditioner, don't have your windows down, try to keep that air as fresh as possible. Obviously, when you're going out, if you need to, if it's a real bother, we all have to wear masks right now anyhow. So that does kind of help filter some of that. But also, I have a friend who she has respiratory issues, and it's just really hard for her right now. So she takes a washcloth that she's dampened down with some cool water, and she just kind of puts that over her face whenever she has to go outside, and that gives her a little bit of relief. But right now, the best thing you can do for that is really just to stay inside. And the best thing you can do, I get asked a lot, because, I am kind of the face of the Red Cross here. It's like, how can we help? How can we support? Um, and I love that, because that means we have such a generous community here. One thing I will tell you is, please don't go up to the area. They've got enough going on up there. They don't, like, if you want to donate something, don't go trekking up up to LaPorte or whatever to take your items. Please find a local organization that can accept those things. Obviously, financial donations are always welcome, because those can be helpful for whatever needs to be, what they need to be used for, whether it's medications for somebody who got displaced and wasn't able to grab their meds, or, lodging, or all those different kinds of things. So that can be done. Just, you can go to a clickable website, redcross.org, and you can make a donation right there online. And other things you could do, like, we've had different community organizations and businesses that have taken up little collections for the various nonprofits that are helping to support these fires. So it's really just, being a good neighbor to those when they need it, and know that someday, if you're the one in need, that's going to come back around. I truly believe that's how it works.
Great advice. I love that. And I love that they can donate to so many places to help, even from afar. Going off
Mm-hmm.
of that, for people who I know wildfires are kind of inevitable, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we don't even know what caused the ones going on right now. But when it happens again, what can people do to try and prevent that in our state?
Yeah, I just feel like, all those old Smokey the Bear commercials we used to see. It's like, you just got to be extra diligent. I mean, we look up at our mountains, we see the beautiful forests, and they are gorgeous. But this time of year, when it's been as dry as it's been, those beautiful forests are also just a lot of really dry tinder. And we just have to think about it that way, so camping, you have got to be extra diligent if you have a campfire, please follow all rules and regulations on whether fires are even allowed. If you are smoking, don't flick your ashes out of, your car window. It really is just, I mean, some of it you think it's kind of a no-brainer, but it's also just things that people do without even thinking, so you've just got to be extra conditioned to think about that, those beautiful forests that we love to explore and hike through. I mean, that really is just a mountain full of dry tinder, and we have to think about it that way and be extra diligent with how we handle ourselves in when we're up enjoying our open spaces and our natural lands. So just, we all want it to be there for years and years to come so we can all enjoy it. So please just make sure that you do your part to keep it safe.
Mm-hmm. What else would you like people to know about the wildfires right now or about the Red Cross in general?
Well, yeah, I think right now, I would say we're out of the woods, but that's not, I mean, you'd never really know because we could have another flare up, tomorrow. I don't want to jinx anything, but that's just the nature of natural disasters. You don't exactly know when or where they're going to happen. One thing I do want to say, though, is that not only, people think of the Colorado Red Cross, here in Northern Colorado, and obviously we're dealing with the things that are happening in our backyard, which would be our fires. But we also are deploying people right now to the Gulf Coast because we have this big hurricane called Laura that is making her way, to landfall. And we know that there are going to be, we need boots on the ground there. So even though we're here in Colorado, we are sending out our people and our resources to help with that situation as well. So we do a really good job here of taking care of our needs in our own backyard, but we also, extend a helping hand to those other regions around the country that need it. And then, the inverse happens too. When we have a big disaster, big fires or big floods, they send folks and resources to help us. So that's the great part of being part of, we are the Northern Colorado chapter, but we are the American Red Cross. So we have this network all across the country of, friends and neighbors that we can call on to come help us. And the great thing about that too is that 94% of our workforce is made up of volunteers. They're just good-hearted people who come in and get the training and then, are ready to go out and do the good work of the Red Cross mission.
That is so awesome. And I know you mentioned it earlier, but if people do want to volunteer, they can just go to your website, right?
They can go to redcross.org and then it'll ask you for your zip code. And when you put that in, it will pull up our local chapter. And then you can click on different links that will take you to volunteer opportunities, donation opportunities, just anything that you're interested in getting involved with. We would love to have you. We'd love to welcome you into our chapter. And it's easy peasy to do. Just go to redcross.org and enter your zip code.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for taking the time to talk to me today. I appreciate it. And I know we all appreciate the work that the Red Cross is doing right now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about it. So thanks for having me.
Again, that was Melissa Venable, the executive director at the American Red Cross Northern Colorado chapter, talking about our state's wildfires. You can learn more at redcross.org or on your Town Square Media station app under Cameron Peak Fire.